Okay, so we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. So today we have my friend Elizabeth. She is a student. She was a student of King's College London, and she's currently an intern, a product operations intern at Cassini. And she's going to talk about how to live and survive in London as a foreign student, and how to build your career after the university. And she will talk about her personal experience. Hello, Elizabeth. Welcome to our webinar. Thank you very much for coming.
Hello. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I was thinking that you will be a perfect guest for our webinar since your degree is very impressive, and also you have a very valuable experience of living in London, and I think you're going to share a lot of life hacks how to adapt to the student lifestyle and everything. It's going to be very, very exciting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so I wanted to start a webinar with a question. So how did you eventually decide to study in the UK? How did you choose it among the other countries? Because I know that you have been studying in Paphos and living in Paphos for most of your life. So how did you make this decision?
Well, okay, I will start by saying that, so I'm from Paphos, as Lisa mentioned, which is a small town in Cyprus. And of course, it's very different from the UK and especially London. So why did I decide to move to the UK? Well, I suppose I always knew that the top universities were in Europe were in the UK. The language was very easy, of course, because I spoke English for most of my life. So that's kind of what prompted the idea of moving to the UK. London specifically, well, to be honest, I never had a burning desire to live in London or anything like that. I didn't know much about London. I visited once when I was 11 with my parents, but of course, I didn't remember anything. So I think the reason I eventually decided to move to London instead of Bath, which was my other choice for university, is because I wanted to experience the best of what England has to offer, because of course London is the best city in England, maybe the world. And, therefore, yes, I'm very happy I made this choice, and I finished university there.
Perfect. And yeah, I know that you graduated King's University, so it was also because it's one of the top universities in the UK, right?
I think it's one of the top universities. It's definitely in the Russell Group.
Yeah.
So it's definitely one of the best in London, along with UCL and Imperial, and as well as Queen Mary.
Yeah.
It was a good university to study in for sure.
Perfect. Yeah, and I know that you have been studying physics and astrophysics for your master's. That's a very impressive degree. So how did you choose physics? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, so in high school, I did advanced mathematics and advanced physics. And actually, it's quite funny, but I always really enjoyed maths. And physics, of course, I liked it, but not as much as maths. I guess I always saw maths like way more intuitive for myself. However, at university level, I thought that, sometimes when you study a subject, it kind of, in a way, kills your passion for it, because you do it so much and you have to do a lot of coursework with the subject and everything. So I thought maybe because of that, I'm not going to go into maths, but I'm going to go into physics, which is of course closely related to maths. And it's even better in the way that it has a ton of applications, real life applications. So that's kind of how this idea to study physics came to reality.
Yeah, and it's, yeah, as you said, it's definitely more practical than just math, how the basics. So you can probably find a lot more jobs with this degree, right?
Yes, I think, to be honest, both maths and physics are very strong degrees. Employers really value both backgrounds. So yeah.
Perfect. And so moving further, how did you find moving to London in the first place? How hard was it to adapt to the London lifestyle? And yeah, were there any difficulties compared to Paphos? Because I know that Paphos is a relatively small town and London is like a huge city. So please describe this process.
Well, for sure, I think, when you move away from your hometown, um, wherever it is from, when you move away for the first time at the age of 17, uh, it's a very scary process because it's like you're throwing yourself into the unknown. For me as well, I was really scared. I asked my friend who lived in London at the time if she could pick me up from the station as soon as I land. So she helped me, settle into my halls and kind of made the process a little bit easier. But looking back at it in retrospect, I honestly think that students moving for the first time, they shouldn't stress as much as they do, because I think students have this idea that they will move from their hometown to a new country and that this country has nothing in it, like all the resources they have to bring with them in their suitcases,
Or
because that's what a lot of Cyprus students do. Their mothers and grandmothers, they will pack like halloumi with them to take to
yeah.
London. They will pack everything like pillowcases, pens, buy 2 30-kilogram bags. But to be honest, as soon as you land here, you can find everything here. Like, you don't have to overthink and stress. I think it's very important to have the fundamentals sorted out first. So your accommodation, how you're going to get to your accommodation, and then all the um, things that you need to buy, you can buy after. So just think about the basics first, then it will make the process a lot easier and less stressful.
Yeah, definitely. Also, because I have the similar experience, but I haven't been studying in London. I've been studying in New York, but I remember that I haven't been stressing that much because I know that it was inevitable that I would go to university, and I found it like it's like there's no point in stressing. And actually, it was quite easy. So even like adapting to a new country, of course, York is smaller and like the university is smaller, so and yeah, accommodation I think it's even less expensive, but like this stress of this transition of going from your hometown to the country you're like I've been in a couple of times, but still it's like foreign country. I found that it wasn't really stressful because I was excited to,
Okay.
go and change my life to like, it was the new step. So it was like, for me, it was very exciting to start the university. How was it for you? Like starting the university, was it an exciting process?
Yeah, it was definitely very exciting. I also enjoyed that my university and my course specifically, they kind of eased us into it. So they would hold a couple of events before the actual lectures began, so that the students would meet each other and um, get to know each other, which I
Yeah,
think is way nicer than you know going and studying university from day one, like without knowing
of
anybody.
course.
Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yes. So,
definitely studying university was definitely a smooth transition, I think.
perfect. Yeah, also from my experience, I remember that we had this induction week where all the societies come around and you pick the society for yourself and you get introduced to the university lifestyle. You meet new people. Yeah, and it's definitely easier than just starting the lectures and not knowing anyone. So I think in England, this process is very smooth and very like nice and relaxing. So it's not that you just, go through, get thrown in the cold waters right away. It's very nice.
Yeah.
And yeah. And I know that the accommodation in London is pretty expensive since it's such a popular city to study and live. So was it hard for you to find an affordable accommodation when you came?
Yes, the short answer is yes. I think it's quite difficult because there's a ton of options for accommodation in London. Whether you want to go for accommodation, which is the university's accommodation, or whether you want to go to a private accommodation, most options will be at least £200 per week, which, for some people might not be as affordable as they would like it to be.
Yeah.
So I can actually recommend 3 university accommodation websites or companies where people can look to find actually affordable accommodation. So one of them is called Unite Students. Another one is called IQ Student Accommodation. And then there's also Optivo, which is the one I actually ended up staying in. I think Optivo, the wood green halls, are the cheapest ones in London. And
Perfect.
to commute from the halls to the center, it only takes approximately 25 minutes or 30 minutes. And the price is roughly 150 per week, which is the cheapest you're going to find for a single room. So, yeah, if anyone is interested, they can check out those websites.
Definitely, that's great. I'm going to leave this website in the description box. So I'm going to leave Liz's email and this description. So everybody, like if you want, you can come and check it. It's going to be in the description after the end of the webinar. Perfect. And coming up to the next question. I know that you're also a foreign student, so it were more difficult for you to adapt than if you came from the UK. So could you give us some tips on adapting to London lifestyle as a foreign student? For example, the tips on how to save money, how to make friends, and how to, maintain the work-life balance.
Okay. So I think in terms of how to save money, so as we've said, accommodation is very important because, of course, accommodation will be your main expense. So it's important to find something which is affordable to you. Okay, that's out of the way. Then the second thing that's the most expensive in London is, of course, as we all know, it's the traveling. Public transport, so the TfL, the underground that we have, is, I think, one of the most expensive in the world compared to other metro systems. So if you can save money on travel, you will be saving a lot. I think a tip I can give is that if you're a student, you can get something known as an 18 plus Oyster card, which basically will give you 1/3 off of travel for a month. Like if you buy the travel card per month and you get as a student, you get a very big discount. And I think that's definitely worth taking advantage of. What else in terms of travel? Yes, I think so. A problem I actually had when I moved to the UK is that I didn't know that when you go on the London Underground that you can just tap with your contactless. So what I remember what I did on day one is I went to those I don't know if you call them cash machines. No, you call them ticket machines where you issue money from your card at the metro station, and I actually bought one of those paper tickets one way to go from Wood Green to Covent Garden. And then I met someone from university, so he could show me around London for the first time. And I showed him my paper ticket, and he just burst into tears from laughing. And he said, "Liz, what did you do? Why did you buy a paper ticket?" And he said, how much did it cost you? And I told him, like £6. That is very expensive to go one way for £6. And he said, you can just use contactless. So you can just tap your card and it will work.
No.
So my advice is, yes, before going to London, know that you can use contactless, or you can also buy blue Oyster cards, again, in those ticket machines and use them to travel. But don't buy paper tickets. Definitely don't do that mistake.
Yeah.
I think that's all I want to say for the travel aspect. And then for food, in terms of food, you can also save money. So this isn't London specific, but I think this is generally applies for the UK. If you go to the supermarket at night, they always have very big discounts because the food is basically almost expired. Okay, not almost, it has another couple of days to go, let's say, but you can get very cheap discounts if you go almost before closing time to a supermarket. So, if you're in a desperate situation, which of course I never hope you're in, but if you happen to be in a situation like that, take advantage of this UK system. But from a general or so to say personal opinion, if you want to save money on food, I think it's very important to meal prep and take your meals with you to university, because trust me, university cafeterias in London at least are very expensive. Like I remember that at King's, a lunch would, let's say, like a full lunch would cost minimum £7 to £8, and it's not worth spending that money every day on a not so good lunch.
Yeah.
I think if you can meal prep, you're definitely going to save a lot of money. Yeah, and the final advice I can give for saving money is to download an app called UniDays. Again, that's to everybody in the UK. I think, you probably know it as well.
Yeah, I also know that I also used it.
Yes, it's very good for discounts on shops, on restaurants, lots of things. It's tailored specifically for students, and you can get numerous discounts on there as well.
I was getting like really big discounts in this app.
Yeah,
if you check, it gives perfect discounts.
Yeah, definitely.
That's amazing. Thank you. The advice that like I don't think a lot of people knows about, like this advice you gave about supermarkets, but it's kind of obvious that they make discounts because it's going to expire, but I never noticed it myself, to be honest. But it's a very good advice. Like even if you're like not struggling, but you don't think it's a good idea to just spend all the money on the food when you can just go before, like after the lecture, if it's the lecture or the seminar is late, just pop in the shop and save money. Very good idea. Perfect. And so coming back to your studies, overall, like if you would rate the experience, how satisfied are you with the quality of your studies in King's College?
When you ask this question, do you mean the quality of teaching? So as in how good the university was?
Yeah, so how good the teaching was, how well did you manage to engage with the material and everything? So would you, I know that this university is very expensive if you, for example, if you are an international student. I know that you took the loan, but it's probably like one of the top universities. So does it answer, the like what it promises? Does it bring this quality out in your experience?
So again, I do think that King's College London is a great university, but of course it does depend on the department that you're in, so to say your program that you study.
Yeah.
So I can only speak for physics, so Department of Physics. I think all the lecturers and my personal tutor and everybody that I met at my time at King's, they were always very helpful, very passionate about their subject, which is the most important thing. always willing to, speak to their students, help out. So I really enjoyed that, seeing so much care from teachers for the first time. That was definitely very nice to see. In terms of material and how difficult it was, I remember when I came to my first lecture ever in physics. So this was year 1, and it was my first subject. It was electromagnetism. I remember entering the class, sitting down and thinking, okay, so electromagnetism is just the very basics that we do in physics A level. It's like a couple of formulas, like can't be that difficult. And then I walk in there and I see on the board, the first thing is the Maxwell's equations. And for all my physics audience out there, people will understand. It's something like all these integrals and the theorems and the weird symbols. And this is literally the first thing I see as a 17-year-old who's only done physics A level. And I remember my heart like kind of sank. I was like, this is so difficult. I'll never make this. And then it was a funny story because turns out that lecture was actually a second-year lecture that our lecturer mixed up.
Oh wow! Oh my God, that's like that. I would just lose it if I would see it, because like imagine you expect that you on the first day you would see something easy or just like a prep and like an introduction to physics, but wow, that probably that would be scary.
And then I remember people were asking her questions during the lecture when they still didn't know that this was second-year material, asking like, "Oh, what's a unit vector, for example?" And she would look at us like, "How do you not know what a unit vector is?" Like,
oh my God!
But then she realized that we were the wrong class. So this is just like a funny story. Obviously, this never happened again.
Yeah.
It was an interesting experience. Overall, I want to say that the subjects are very well laid out in chronological order. Like you start with classical physics, in second year you move on to modern physics, in third year you get to specialize in what physics you want to go into. And then of course, if you pick the masters, that's where you get the most niche, let's say, specialization.
Yeah. Perfect.
Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. And could you please describe the student life a bit more? So, for example, what societies did you join, and if you had any internship or part-time work during your studies?
So in terms of societies, I remember in first year I joined badminton, and also I joined basketball. So I remember I never played too much in school, but I was ambitious and I thought, okay, I'm going to get back into it because now I'm at uni and I can do all these amazing things, like enroll myself in so many societies. I think I ended up dropping out from half of them because it was just too much. And especially in London, you can imagine everybody is living very far away and you can't, sometimes difficult to go to different societies at all times. Yeah, so I think that's, honestly, I joined so many societies over the 3 years that they're all just jumbled up in my head now. So, but then in terms of part-time work, so in my second year, I was actually working as a barista part-time just to make some extra money for myself. I realized halfway through the year that it was probably the wrong approach because I was studying less and, getting very tired from working because, of course, it's very long shifts and you're not in the mood to study after those shifts. So if I could give one advice, is probably during university, it's best to look for summer internships or part-time work or volunteering, whatever you prefer. But if you can, of course, if you can financially, during the semesters, try to, focus on studying, going to different societies, making friends. Like, don't worry so much about working. You have your whole life to work, so make the most out of your experience.
Yeah. So did you have a part-time work as a barista, or was it also a full-time job?
It was part-time. So I would work on Mondays because I didn't have lectures, and then Saturday and Sunday. Yeah. So it was like a very long weekend of work.
Oh wow. Yeah, it's probably like I know that London is a very busy city, so also like working as a barista in London is probably just very, very tiring, and you have to speak to people all the time.
Yeah, especially because I worked in Victoria Station, which is where people come from the trains. I would always speak to very angry or tired or, demanding customers.
Oh.
Definitely gave me some valuable skills, communication skills especially.
Yeah, that's like the top notch skill you could put in your CV, because like imagine how hard it was. Wow. Perfect. And so coming back to your studies, I know that university is pretty demanding time for students, and also physics, it's a pretty hard subject. So could you give us some advice on how to cope with the university lifestyle, and also get a good grade at the end of the day? Yeah, so in particular, for example, how to get a good grade, cope with deadlines, cope with stress, how to keep up with the amount of reading, and how to still manage to have your social life.
Okay, that's a good question. Well, so in terms of studying, I think it's very important to find like a study group. So it doesn't have to be something official, but even if you have, your course mates or people you probably don't even know that well, just pick a day in the week where you sit down all together in a library or in a cafe somewhere, and you try to solve the course worksheets or the problem sets that you had assigned by your lecturer. Because I promise you, no matter how well you think you understand physics, or you think your method of solving a problem is the only method that exists, sitting down and listening to different points of views, different ways that people can imagine a problem in physics, it's going to give you so many valuable skills, and will make you understand it from different perspectives, that when the time of the exam comes, you can remember, oh, this is how my friend Tom thought about this problem, maybe I should apply his method. And then you will be thankful that you weren't a lone wolf doing everything by yourself, but you actually had people to work with. So, arrogance aside, and try to be a good team player. I definitely think that. And also help your course mates. If someone doesn't know how to solve something, help them. Don't be stuck up. Like, really, nobody likes those people. People appreciate help. And at the end of the day, if you help someone, your grade is not going to go down. Remember that. So I think having a study group is important to achieve good grades. On a more practical tip, I also think this is personal, but buy an iPad. This is very specific, but I don't know if you had an iPad during your studies, Lisa.
No, like I never had actually I never had an iPad in my life. I had I had an iPad, but not during my studies. Yeah. Yeah, but it's not, I didn't bring my iPad to the university.
So I guess I should explain the reason for an iPad is because when you take notes, it's usually, I guess you can either get tired, or sometimes, during the lectures, you simply don't have time to both listen and take notes, if that's what you do. And specifically in sciences, you can write something, but then you have to write an equation. So to type this out is practically impossible, and then writing by hand is also can sometimes be impractical. Therefore, buying an iPad, even if you get like the iPad 8, which is I think 3 or 4 generations behind, it will only cost like £200, £300. And then if you buy it with an Apple Pen, I know it's can be expensive at the beginning, like £400 altogether, but trust me, it's an investment which you can keep all your notes in the iPad, bring it with you all through university. The notes will never get lost like notes on a piece of paper. You know, a piece of paper can so easily get lost. So that's for physics and sciences in general, I think it's very important. I also gave this tip to my friend who studies medicine, and she bought the same iPad as me, also an Apple Pen, and she said it was like the best advice that she could get for her studies.
Yeah, that's a very good idea to actually, like, if you need to remember all these formulas, you just go to your notes, because yeah, the paper is just really impractical these days, because you should carry like loads of paper around. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah. I'm not. Did I answer everything?
There are also, like, you also mentioned something else in the notes.
So yes, I guess I also wanted to say that specifically for physics, it's very important, again, to understand the concept, so to understand the theorem and the applications behind something. But at the end of the day, it's much more important to actually solve the problem if you want to pass the exam with a good grade. So again, going back to electromagnetism, no matter how well you understand these electric and magnetic fields, if you've never solved something using Gauss's theorem, if you see those weird symbols in the exam, you're just not going to understand what to do, no matter if you understand the theory, sorry. So do as many problems as you can if you want to get a good grade in physics. And a kind of fundamental advice, do a lot of past papers, because it's kind of like A-levels. Lecturers all have their own style of exams. They have their own style of setting specific questions. So, you know, a couple of months before the exams, they will publish past papers. And the more of those that you do, the higher are your chances of getting a good grade. So that's my advice for physics, or any science, really.
Actually, past papers are just like something that saved my life in school and also in university. And I studied art. I studied international relations. But even for arts, you can get like similar questions that you're gonna get in the exam, and you just to study these topics, and you can even define like if this topic is going to be in the exam, because if it was in the past exam, like recit or the previous year exam, it's probably not going to be in the current exam. So, and you can also, like, for art questions, if you have to write essays, you can just do like bullet points, and probably something similar is going to come up. So just practicing with past papers, even for art, is extremely useful.
Yeah, I always thought that, in art and humanities, you have more coursework-based and essay-based, let's say, form of examination rather than actual end-of-year exams.
No, we had essay-based questions just at the end. In school, we had to answer a couple of questions just to write an essay. And for international relations and some topics, like we had 60% essays that we had to do, like coursework. And in the first year and second year, we had to do written exams, but it was also essays, but we just had to memorize and write essays, like prepare and do it in the exam hall. So yeah, and the questions were incredibly similar. So you can, if you do past papers very well, if you just have the skill of forming an answer really quickly, it's so much easier.
Yeah, no, past papers are key.
Yeah. And also, I think that the advice you gave on the study group is also incredibly useful way of finding friends, because you have the same struggle basically, and it brings you together. And yeah, we can find a lot of cool people this way as well.
Oh yeah, no, for sure, for sure. I think yeah, like you said, people become friends they when they have either the same common interests or they have common goals. So
Yeah.
in university, you definitely all have a common goal. So that's definitely going to make you guys bond over solving certain problems together. So
Definitely. Yeah. Also, I know that the amount of reading in university is just really like big, and there's a lot of reading in general. So how to keep up with this amount of reading? For example, if you have 4 seminars a week and you have to prepare for each seminar, you have to read like 4 articles. How to cope with the reading?
well, I guess in physics we don't have to read articles at all.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Uh,
That's arts.
but but still similar to that, we have a lot of different subjects. You study everything starting from um, again, as I mentioned, classical physics, which can be something like mechanics, finishing with even like fundamentals like chemistry in first year. So again, even though it's all physics, you still have to keep up with all these different subjects.
Yeah.
I think it's good to kind of designate specific hours to every single either problem set or coursework that you have, depending on their importance. So this coursework weighs, let's say, it takes 10% of my grade. I will dedicate more time to that rather than to something that is like an online quiz and it's 2% of my grade. I mean, it makes much more sense to dedicate your time to the 10% grade. So this way, you can always stay on top of things, because to be honest, no matter how great you think you are, uh, it's very difficult with the amount of workload, as you said, to get amazing grades at university. Like, it's very difficult to get 100%.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people who came from school, for example, they were overachievers and they would get like 19 out of 20. That was the
Mhm.
grade system. And then they came to university and all of a sudden they get something like 60, which is
Yeah.
one in the UK, and their heart is just shattered. Like a
Mhm.
60, that's so low. But like, university is challenging. That's the whole point. You really have to, yeah, push yourself and don't get discouraged if you get 60, because that's good.
Yeah, definitely. The system of grades, like for example, a pass is 40. So even though it's a bad grade in general, like it's a third, uh, it's still a pass. So imagine like how demanding the system is if 40 is a pass, and then the more like appropriate grade is 60, but still like it's so much more demanding than school curriculum.
Yeah, and I think as well, for the job market in the future, most jobs they will ask for a 2-1 or higher. So a
Mhm.
2-1 means 60% or higher. So as long as you secure your 2-1 by the end of your degree, you're in a good position. You're in a good position to apply for most jobs out there. Of course, if you want to go for a PhD, so a doctorate, you need a 70 plus, which is considered a first in the UK. So it really depends. I think it's important to figure out while you're in university what you want to do in the future, to kind of strive for different grade boundaries from there. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I also got this advice to, a lot of employers would prefer you to have to have work experience, so to participate in some societies, rather than just have first and no, social experience, social work, because they would see that you study a lot and you have only theoretical experience, but they would maybe take someone with 2-1, but who has a lot of work experience and social experience, like in societies. I heard that. So it makes you more well-rounded person. Like,
Yeah. No, that's so true. That's so true. In the UK, you really need work experience. That's what I understood.
I think also like maybe in the other countries as well, because if you just say the degree doesn't give you a lot of practical work, if you don't, for example, have an internship, or if you don't have like maybe society work, if you like, for example, if you study politics and you could participate in some societies to like run for an election in a society or like in a student union, that's also a very good skill and also very good experience. Yeah.
Actually, to expand upon that thought, I was also thinking an advice is that while you're at university, try to maybe take part as being a committee in one of the societies. So I know you, Lisa, were part of the Russian society. So
Yeah, I was the president of Russian society. Yeah, it's not only it's a good experience, it's also it was very exciting to do something with your peers. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because then you can put, let's say, president of a society on your CV, and employers are going to see that and say, wow, she has managing skills or leadership skills, which is, again, very valuable for employers. So I definitely agree. If you can get into any society, even as an events organizer, let's say, which is what I was for a society at KCL, and then I put that on my CV. I put it as events manager at a society. And then that already says that, I was taking initiative, I was proactive, organizing events. Maybe I even organized like 2 events or 3 events in the whole year, but at least I can say that I did it. So
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Also, the CVs, like I think that like what you put in the CV is very important everywhere, but in the UK, like the amount of practical experience in the CV, like even like it can be a society or it can be like even like 1-2 week work experience, like a small internship. It's also very valuable, like as opposed to not doing anything, because they really look at that. And when we have our induction, when we have our like employability coaching, they always say that about CVs and how to practice writing your CVs. Also, in our union, University of York, we had this platform where they had jobs that are sponsored by the university. So the jobs that are promoted in the university website, and it could be like the online jobs or jobs in the city, like close to York. And it was really important to like, it was really helpful to find a job, because if you just go to LinkedIn, you probably need a lot of work experience or just like like a complete degree. But if you find the job website that is done specifically for students, that also like that was really helpful for me to find a job this way as well. Yeah. And also like coming on the topic of jobs, I know that a lot of students struggle with finding a job after university. So that's my next question. How hard was it for you to find a job right after the university? Was it a stressful journey?
Okay, well, from my personal experience, to be honest with you, I got very lucky because I was always kind of worried, or not worried, but I was always overthinking about writing a cover letter for a company. I didn't really know how to phrase it. What am I supposed to say? So I've never written a cover letter in my life. And then the time came to apply, and I found this job actually, as you say, on my King's KCL like careers website. So it was the same way. And that company was asking for a cover letter. So I thought, okay, I'm going to write a cover letter just for practice and apply to this company and see what they say. And it ended up being the job that I work in now. So my first cover letter that I ever wrote, like they took me from that job for that job immediately. So this was my personal experience. It was just pure luck. However, I do have to say that all my friends and my peers from university, they, you know, some of them, of course, also found jobs quite easily, but most of them had to go through a very long process, especially if you go for very big companies. Um, it's a very long process. You have to wait. Job applications can go anywhere between 2 weeks and 3 months. They will reply to you very slowly, whether you progress to the next stage or not. So be patient, don't lose hope, and keep an Excel spreadsheet with all of your applications. I think that's the advice I've been given, which most people found very helpful.
Yeah, actually, like to see where you applied, and you can also check your emails this way, because probably like the reply went into spam, or if you didn't check your LinkedIn on the right time, you could have missed an interview. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I didn't know that it was the first job that you applied with your cover letter, but it's an incredible thing that it happened so quickly. I think that's like it's very important to just be optimistic and like don't lose hope, even if you just do it as a task for yourself. If you just do it and you don't have a lot of hope, like you just do a cover letter for each job and you just send them out. This way you can just see that you're doing something, and if that's a very long process, you can just do this as an everyday task, or like every week task, and one day it's going to be like it's going to help you find a job. Yeah, but what I meant is that if you do it as a process, it will eventually work, and it will help you also to practice and write your CV. Yeah.
Yes, no, for sure.
Perfect. Yeah, so that's very good advice. So my final question is, what are your plans for the future? And do you have any maybe specific plan or a couple of ideas for what you want to do in the future? And also, are you planning to stay in London for the future, or you want to move somewhere else?
So, okay, what do I want to do in the future? Good question. I ask myself every day. So I'm currently learning how to program. So I'm currently learning Python because I want to get into software engineering. And I guess that's kind of the path that I chose for myself, because currently I work for a startup and I do a little bit of everything. So from project management to customer support, marketing, so a little bit of everything, which I like, because when you don't know what you want to do after university, it's very good to kind of try a lot of different things. But then, yes, in the future, I would like to apply for more tech-focused roles. That is definitely my plan. And regarding whether I want to stay in London, I think for at least the next 4 to 5 years, I would be very keen to stay in London. But after that, after I've established a position for myself and I've had experience, I would definitely move to a more quiet and warm place.
Yeah.
Perhaps outside of the UK as well. I'm not sure where yet, but I would like to move out before I'm 30 years old.
Yeah, because I think that London, it gives you a lot of opportunities because it's just a center of like life in the UK, but it's also very challenging. Like it's very expensive and the weather is not very good. So it's definitely, it's good to establish a career, but if you feel like an accomplished like a professional, you can also work remotely from anywhere. It's a very good idea to consider, moving out somewhere.
Exactly. If you have the expertise and then you want to work online, you can live anywhere and make the money you would make in London and live in Cyprus.
Yeah.
Big island.
Yeah, yeah. Cyprus is like now the weather is a bit cold, but all over the year it's amazing. Just very warm and like it's summer all the year.
It's amazing. The weather in London is actually quite good now as well. It's around 10 degrees, which is for February.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, especially for February.
Yeah. I think it gets worse in March. That's what I've heard. So, yeah.
So we have someone who joined us. It's Victoria, our common friend. So, Vicky, do you want to ask a question?
Hi, yes. Nice to see you again. I was just wondering, so how did you cope with stress in third year, or in your case, in your master's year? Like at moments when it got super overwhelming, like did you have any strategies? Or I don't know if you already discussed this before until I joined, but yeah.
Thank you for your question. It's a very good question. We haven't discussed my
Oh, we
math
actually haven't discussed it. Yeah, but it's a very important question.
or how I coped with stress. So I think it's very important to talk to your friends when you're stressed, especially if you're writing either a dissertation or something like a master's project, um, because of course, you know, talking it out is going to help a lot, but also it will give you perspective to understand that maybe you're not alone and some people can go through the same things as you. And also, it can help to talk to someone who is doing the master's project with you, or not master's, third year in your case, or maybe someone who's in the same class as you, because then, of course, that person can relate. And maybe in a way, if you know, if you're feeling down or feeling unmotivated, they can inspire you. So they can say, oh yeah, I did this, I wrote that many words, like, and then you're like, oh, okay, so if they can do it, then why can't I? So
Yeah,
that would be, talking to people would be the best way. Yeah, how to cope by yourself, I really don't know. I wouldn't be able, if I didn't have friends to talk to, I don't know how I would cope by myself.
yeah,
I feel like a good coping strategy could be to just take naps and pretend the world doesn't exist. What do you think about this one?
Honestly, I tried that, but every time I woke up from one of those naps, I would just not go back to writing my master's.
Oh my God, yeah, like I can.
Fair enough.
That was the trouble. Yeah, I mean, for me as well, drinking coffee, also because I love coffee, it was like a little motivator to start.
Yeah.
So I think that's also might be a good advice to like find a little incentive to begin. And once you have that incentive, you're like, okay, now I start this job and no distractions.
Yeah,
Nice.
I also think that's a good talking to people is incredibly useful because you see that you're not alone and other people have the same struggle. And like because I think like it happened to me a lot when I have anxiety. I feel that, oh, I'm like the only person who deals with these problems, and I feel like no really bad about myself. But when you see that other people have similar problems, you don't feel like that you're that bad, and you just see other people, and you feel the support, and you know how to cope from their experience, but also you feel that, oh, it's normal to have this, and yeah, just feel so much better by talking. And also talking helps you to take this problem out from your emotional level, and uh, just reduce the stress and reduce the bad emotions that you have about the problem. That's definitely really good. Yeah, so I think it's been an hour now. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's been incredibly useful. Like you gave a lot of advice on on how to save money, but also how to find friends and keep a good work, study, and life balance, and also how to cope with stress, which I think now is one of the biggest problems that students face. Yeah, so if you have any other questions for Liz, I will leave her email in the description, and also I'll give her answers, like her advice, in the description box. I will leave, I leave it there. So if you want to check it out, please go in the description box.
Thank you for inviting me once again.
Thank you very